Kind of the way this is going to work right now is that VUIT is going to be the point of contact for technical issues that you run into with Zoom, such as you're trying to connect with you're trying to get your computer to connect to webcams or microphones or any kind of connectivity issues. Those are the things that VUIT is going to be in a position to definitely assist with. And also know that all of VUIT is going to be supporting this effort, not just the AV team or your individual departmental teams. Everybody at VUIT is committed to making sure that this is an absolute success. So part of that is that VUIT will be mirroring the Center for Teaching's assistance hours. Now those hours are Monday through Thursday, 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., Fridays, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., and Sundays, 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. And in order to receive VUIT support, we ask that you go ahead and submit support tickets and just do your normal communication with your IT reps. And if we don't have the answer, we will certainly get that answer for you or direct you to the person that can give you that answer. Also, I wanted to point out that once Zoom is operational on campus and ready to go, there is a way for you to test your machine as well as your computer and microphone prior to getting a Zoom meeting started, and that can be found at Zoom, that is zoom.us/test. The question was, is there any plan right now to supply webcams to faculty or staff that do not have them currently? The answer is that question was asked in the first session, and I've escalated that to kind of see if I can get some guidance on that. As soon as we have further information, I'll get that out. Yes, so we are keeping an eye out as to kind of when those help requests come in, what the nature of them are, and we're escalating based upon kind of if it is an instructional issue in a classroom or getting ready, or an instructional issue with getting a class started or with getting materials prepped, not getting materials prepped, but getting your system prepped. We are looking for those in the queue to get those escalated out. How do you get into Zoom? So we will have some more material coming out on that in the very near future. We're determining the best way to get that software to everyone. Stacey will have more information on how Zoom can be used within Brightspace, but Zoom will also be able to be used on the normal desktop app. So it will be a paid Zoom license, and we do have kind of all the features past what that basic offering is.
Any of you accessed the Brightspace support website before to see any of our on-demand resources? Awesome. You're in for a treat because we've been working on these for 2.5 years, getting ready for this day. We have so much there for you. If you go to vanderbilt.edu/brightspace, vanderbilt.edu/brightspace, it will take you to our support site. One of the tabs on our support site is called On-Demand Resources, and there's a section here just for instructors. I'm going to reference this over and over today, and I'm going to show you how to get to this page from different places inside of Brightspace. But what we do here is we create resources that we know faculty need. For example, one of my favorites is in the content area, how do I insert stuff into my course? We take screenshots of exactly what it looks like in Brightspace. We give step-by-step instructions, and we create guides that are going to allow you to be independent in navigating Brightspace. And if you run into questions, answer some of your most frequently asked questions. You can see that there's sections here on all the different Brightspace tools. Specifically, I want to draw your attention to our quickly growing collection of resources on creating and using video in Brightspace. That's the first thing we're going to talk about today. And then the second thing we're going to talk about is video conferencing with Zoom and Virtual Classroom. And all of these resources are here available to you. And literally, for the last couple days, we're adding to them every hour. Generally, we're adding to them weekly or even daily. So keep up with this site, keep it bookmarked, make sure you can go back to it. But I'll show you how to get there from inside of Brightspace later as well. Before we talk about specific tools you might want to use, I want to familiarize us all with some of the terms that I'm going to use to describe teaching practices. One thing that's going to be a really big distinction is in the face-to-face classroom, when we come into the classroom, we sort of bring our entire skill set. And so there's going to be some presentational activities, like what I'm doing now, where I don't really require you guys to do much except for maybe nod and make me feel like I'm welcome. On the other hand, interactional activities, I actually need to be able to check in with individual students, or we need to be able to have a well-facilitated group discussion. It requires that back and forth. Occasionally, there's also presentational activities where students are the ones giving the presentations. And in an online classroom, we actually separate these kinds of activities out and use different tools. So in a face-to-face classroom, you bring your whole self, your students bring your whole self, and you can mix and match the presentation and the interaction. But online, presentation is one set of tools, interaction is usually a different, and being able to use the right tool at the right time is going to really help you maximize how easily your students can access the material and how accessible it is for people who have different Wi-Fi speeds and different kinds of computers and phones that they're working on and things like that. Another thing we really need to think about when we're drawing on our face-to-face activities as a guide for how to go online is whether these activities have to be synchronous, meaning we have to be in the same place, same time, or whether they have to be or whether they can be asynchronous. Generally, synchronous activities are a little bit harder to manage online. And so if there's an activity that you could post and then students could respond later, or you could post and students could view during a larger time period, that's a little bit easier to manage online than everyone being in the same place at the same time for the entire session. Another consideration is whether our face-to-face activities require high bandwidth, like in a technical sense, using a lot of data on the network, or whether they require low bandwidth. If we are in a situation where every person on campus is accessing the same tool at the same time, we have literally the best tools on the market, and I believe our tools can take it, but it's going to stress some of our networks sometimes. And so thinking through how can you use high bandwidth tools when you need them, but use low bandwidth tools when that's not possible or when you don't need a higher bandwidth. So these three considerations are things we're going to talk through for each of the tools I show you. Video conferencing is a synchronous tool and it's high bandwidth. So we're using a lot of internet, we're all there at the same time in the same place, and we're able to interact in a lot of different ways. Just like if we were in a face-to-face classroom, we're able to have a live conversation. Anything that uses live video with multiple users is a high bandwidth activity. So live classroom sessions using Zoom or virtual classroom are wonderful and very useful, but they're also probably the highest bandwidth tool in our suite of tools. And so thinking through, if I'm just going to be lecturing and the students don't really need to respond to the lecture in the moment, they could respond afterwards, is there a slightly lower bandwidth tool I could choose? Maybe instead of making it synchronous, I could make it asynchronous video. Just kind of thinking through your options as far as presentation versus interaction, high bandwidth versus low bandwidth, and synchronous versus asynchronous. Having that 3-point model in mind will help you make good decisions about your teaching. My laptop is well equipped to use all of these tools, and I have an adequate bandwidth at home, so I would have no problem logging on to a virtual session. What I can't predict, though, is if I have 20 students in my class or 100 students in my class, will they also have the right equipment and the right bandwidth to be able to access live video? Probably not all of them all of the time. So thinking through what the complications might be can be useful. I do have some good news, though. Let's say you have 100 students in live video conferencing and 5 of them experience difficulties during the session and can't make it. We have all the tools you need to get those sessions recorded while they're happening. So even students who experience technical difficulties can go back and review the meetings later using an asynchronous, lower bandwidth type of tool. So we have a lot of backup in place. You're gonna be able to find the right tool. I just wanted to introduce you to the terminology that you're gonna have to think through. We're gonna start by looking at the Kaltura My Media tool. On the top of your screen, you see a lot of very useful links. One, Ask a Librarian, is going to be useful for those of you who are using course resources. We're looking for My Media. Now, when you click on My Media for the first time, it's going to create a user for you because this is a third-party tool that we contract with that integrates inside of Brightspace meaning you don't already have an account until you click on that link. So you might see a little box that says, do you want us to remember you, or do you want to not see this message next time? Go ahead and click that box and continue. And then you should see a screen that looks a lot like this one, but without these videos already in place. Kaltura Media is a service for you to upload videos you already have or create new videos that you want to deploy within Brightspace. You can upload or create the video here in My Media, and then it makes it really easy to add that video to any place you need to add it in your course. You can add it to an announcement. You can add it inside a content module. You can add it in a discussion board, in a quiz, almost anywhere in the course where there's a text box for you to type in. There's also a button to add Kaltura Media. This blue button right here is how you're going to add things. You'll notice that there's media upload. So if you already have a video and you already have the copyright license to use that video, you can upload it to My Media and deploy it to any course you teach. Students can't download the video, but they can stream it. And you can add captions and all sorts of really cool tools that'll make the video more accessible for students. Webcam recording and Kaltura Capture take you to a tool that will need to download onto your desktop the first time you use it. So this is a really good time for those of us who've never used Kaltura Capture before to download the tool now. I'm going to choose download for Windows. What we recommend if you're using a tablet instead of a laptop to create videos is to use another app. There's a few out there that are great. I love the app Explain Everything. And it can help you create a really nice video where you can have your slides, talk over them, talk on it. It's fairly user-friendly. And then you can use Add New and upload that video that you get from your iPad, upload that video into My Media. But if you're using a laptop or a desktop, Windows or Mac, and you want to create a lecture slides or a webcam video using the tools that are built in, you'll go to Kaltura Capture. You'll need to download this tool and then just do what it says. When things like that happen where the guide says, at this point, you should have access to My Media, but you get a message that says access denied, that's when you would immediately contact Brightspace at vanderbilt.edu, because we field those kinds of questions all the time and we can help you work through them. Oftentimes it's just browser settings, but sometimes we have to escalate to the company. So now when I go to Add New and Kaltura Capture, it's going to ask me if I want to open it. And this is what it looks like on my screen. And it gives me a lot of options for what kinds of things I want to share with people. I can share my screen, or I can not share my screen at all. This could be just me talking into a camera. Or maybe I want my screen, but I do not want them to see me because it's 11 p.m. I am sitting on my couch with my cat next to me, and I really don't want my students to get a look at that, right? Once you've decided how you're going to record, the entire recording is there, which is another reason why it can be a good idea to create multiple recordings. I can do the thing that works best as a webcam with just the webcam on, do my 5 or 6 minutes that way. Then I can turn the screen recorder on and turn off the webcam. And I get the choice, do I want to record, I don't know if y'all can see it, do I want to record the full screen, or do I just want to have a select area? So maybe I have some other things open on the sides, or like when I have my slides open, I have the notes open underneath the slides that are actually telling me what to say when I'm doing the slide. And so I'll just select the area that is the actual slide, so students can't see everything else around. But it's also fine just to do full screen, make it easy on yourself. The very first time you open up Kaltura Capture, there can be a lot of steps that you have to go through to get it working. Setting up this tool for the first time takes a little bit. But I've talked with dozens, if not hundreds, of faculty in the past 3 days. And I would like you to know that I have seen so many people spend an hour or two with this tool and then feel like this is just a natural extension of Brightspace and I can use it without any trouble. All technology tools are going to sometimes have errors, sometimes have trouble. That's just the way technology is sometimes. But this tool works really well with Brightspace, and I've seen people just take a little time, practice making some videos, and then feel really comfortable with it in a short period of time. My laptop has a really loud fan, so the question was, if you're recording on your laptop, the background noise can be really distracting, and that is a real problem. Those of you who have a Mac won't have that problem because you have noise filters built into your microphone. But those of us who use a PC laptop, I have a loud fan, and I cannot sit 3 feet away from my computer and students still be able to understand the video. It's just not intelligible. So that's one of the reasons you need to practice a few times. Any kind of a headset that has headphones and a speaker that's close to your mouth and that allows you to sit a little ways away from the computer and record using a microphone that's close to your mouth will cut out that background noise. So if you have both the screen and the camera on, it actually records 2 screens, and then it lets you toggle between whether one screen is bigger and the other is smaller. And it lets the viewer actually do the toggling too. So if students want a big screen capture and your tiny face in the corner, students can toggle it to do that. But if they want to see your face, because maybe you're standing next to your chalkboard doing some writing, they can toggle it back. Try every possible combination. Watch the video playback. Don't do an hour lecture as your first experiment. Take one slide, do that one slide as a webcam video, as a screencast, having both together. You will get to manipulate the videos and even delete them afterwards if they don't work for you, but really take in an hour or 2 over the next few days to figure out how that tool works. Yes, everyone who has access to Brightspace has this My Media tab, and they can create videos. So presentational doesn't just mean the professor presenting to the students. If you have students who need to do presentations, they can also set up a webcam recording, record themselves presenting, and then make that available to your class in different ways. We have student guides about how to use Kaltura too. So let me just scroll up to the top of this support site. The on-demand resources, you'll notice there's one tab for instructors and one for students. The student screen is a lot smaller because we don't often get support requests from students. Generally, if the instructor can figure out how to do it, the students can figure out how to use what the instructor put up there. But we do have quite a few media and Kaltura guides because if students are recording things independently, it can be really useful. And we're happy to answer emails from them. However, it's not our primary role is to answer emails from students. So we like when instructors can kind of give really clear directions, make sure students are really clear about what's going to be expected, and then if there's malfunctions or if students really just need different training, we'll provide guides and we'll definitely help with malfunctions. We don't want anything to go wrong with Brightspace. My preference for lecture videos, by the way, is I get my lecture slides up, I select the area so I can still see all my notes underneath the PowerPoint slide. So my preference is screen recording, a select area, no camera. I use just regular earbuds that I happen to already own, but if you have access to better equipment, that can be great too. Keep working with it. Take some lecture slides and do a couple of practice runs where you either have the webcam on or off, do the full screen versus not full screen, record yourself in different places to see which one sounds better, maybe with headphones on. I use my little Apple earbuds to record videos. I think they work great, but you might have access to a nicer microphone. And if you have a Mac, the built-in microphones in Macs are so good, you really don't need anything else. So if a little bit of time to sort of work through the tool, and I believe that you'll have everything you need. So most of you should be able to go back to your courses, go back to your home page, and on your homepage, you should see a tab that says Training Courses. And there should be a course that has this funny blue umbrella in the picture that says Remote Teaching Training Course, and today's day and time. Every single course in Brightspace has this help button in the navigation bar, and one of those help buttons that you can choose is Instructor FAQ. That's our guides. So if I open that up, you can see that we have information here about teaching remotely, and we have guides for pretty much every frequently asked question we've ever gotten One of my favorites is how do I insert stuff into my course. There's actually an insert stuff button, and it's a fun button. It lets you insert lots of cool stuff into your course. And so if you want to use that button, you can follow this step-by-step guide to insert stuff into your course. All of these things are available in every single course. When you are using this little tool, after you're done, it will say save and close, and that'll upload it to Brightspace, or delete video. And so you get a choice there whether delete it or let it upload. Once it's, let me go back to this My Media page. Once it's in My Media, you also have a choice whether to delete it, keep it, edit it, move it around. It hasn't been added where anyone else can see it. And I'll show you right now a couple ways that you can add it to your course. So the question was, if you do go home and play around with the tool and create all these videos, do you have the ability to upload them, save them, manipulate them, or without them being deployed to a course? And absolutely, you have the opportunity to save it or delete it in multiple places. And then just having uploaded it to My Media doesn't put it in a course. You still have the ability to put it exactly where you want it in a course. I'm gonna go ahead and start recording real quick, and you see it counts down so that I can clear my throat and have that last drink of water, make sure my screen's right. And then down here, this is the record and the pause button. So you can think of this as like a cough button. If I want to pause recording, everything I'm saying now is not being picked up. When I click the record button again, it resumes. If I need to stop in between every slide and review the notes on that slide and make sure I'm in the right headspace before I keep recording, I have the ability to do that without interrupting my video, right? With the pause and record button. But when I'm completely done, this square is the one I click to stop the recording. Am I sure I want to stop it? Yes, I'm sure. And then I have the choice here, just as you were saying earlier, to delete, save, and upload, or just save it on my computer and not quite upload it yet. I can add a description. I have lots of ability to manipulate these videos now. And then also later, once they're in My Media, the title is going to be the course, the day the video is for, or the topic of the video. I can put a description in there, making it really clear what the video is about, not only for my own organization, but also so students who have to interact with this video won't just see like video 1, video 2, but they'll have a little bit more information about what they're looking at. And then you have a choice. If you preview this video and you decide it's just not going to work, you can delete it right here before you ever upload it. You can save it to your own device. If you're very tech savvy and you want to edit this video using your own editing tools, you've got the ability to do that. But the usual choice is to click save and upload and get that puppy in the web. I do not recommend editing your videos. Genuinely, editing video takes more time than re-recording the video. So if you are sitting in a comfy chair with a cup of tea and your lecture slides on your laptop and you record a 10-minute video and then you watch it and decide you don't like it, re-record the video. Editing, the kind of short lecture slides we're doing, editing is not usually worth it. Now, if you really just need to cut off the beginning or the end or do very simple editing, there's tools in Brightspace. We have some guides about how to use them. And so after you've clicked save and upload, it's going to put it in your My Media in Brightspace. In fact, I'm going to click on My Media so we can see it. You see those gears? That's because it's still in upload process. This is what we just recorded. And there's an editing tool built in. So if I have to do super simple editing, like cutting off the first 5 seconds of the video or something like that, you can do that in Brightspace. You cannot download a video that's already been uploaded. However, we can. And if there's some sort of a reason why you need that video file back, we're happy to help you figure out how to do that. But no, once you've uploaded a file to Brightspace, it lives in My Media, and neither students nor you can download it. Once it's here, it's easy to delete. Do you see this little trash can button right here? If I upload it to Brightspace, no one but me can see it in My Media. It's not shared with anyone. And I could delete every single video here if I decide I don't need them anymore and I don't want them cluttering up my space. The question is, can you save it to your computer and then edit the video if you have the right programs? And the answer is yes. My other answer is, if this is not something you regularly do, don't learn how to do it now. like really, I don't want to scare anybody, but video editing is not something you dabble in. It's something you get good at. So I would recommend creating short videos, making sure they're right, uploading them to Brightspace, and then deploying them out. And as Tracy George said earlier, we're all going to do things that are slightly less than sort of our ideal version of what it could be, but we're all in this together, and I think students will just really appreciate all the effort you've gone to make that work really accessible to them. You can add any file that you create, and your students can add any file they create to any place in Brightspace where you see a text box. So that's assignments, discussions, content, announcements, any place where there's a text box. You can just add a link to anything that's in your My Media files. You can't use the Kaltura app outside of Brightspace.
Right.
So Brightspace tries to walk people through the process. So if you give them one of our guides for using Kaltura, it will say the first time you do this, you're going to need to download and install the thing. And we don't have a really high volume with students doing that, but we haven't run into a lot of problems. If students do have problems, we're happy to help in a similar way that we help today. Our guides can be really useful for that. But I love what you said about if we're going to send students an email to let them know what they should be prepared to do over the next couple weeks. Once you decide what tools you're going to use and how you're going to use them, I actually personally wouldn't use an email. I would use the announcements in the course and then double up with an email. But say, hey, here's what this course is going to be for the next 2 weeks. I've got everything set up. We might run into some problems, but let's be flexible and work together, communicate a lot. Here's what I know is going to be required of you. You'll have to be able to access Brightspace regularly. You'll need to use Kaltura Capture if they're going to do some kind of presentation. So having those expectations up front is an awesome idea. We are talking about someone who's going to have an assignment for students where they need to use Kaltura to film their own presentations, right? If you just want students to watch the videos you create, they don't need any special equipment except Brightspace.
Just click on the link.
They just click on the link and there's streaming video there ready for them. However, if you're thinking that one thing your students are going to do is need to create presentations, create slides, create webcam videos, Kaltura Capture can be a great tool for them as well, and they have access to it, and they'll have to follow the same steps you did today. So there's a guide by Cynthia Brame, who's one of my colleagues at the CFT, called Effective Educational Videos. It's on our CFT website. But I just read it the other day because I was writing some resources for just this sort of thing, and it's not 6 to 9 minutes. So our guideline is more than a 10-minute video is hard. There's no hard and fast rules for how long your lecture videos should be. Use your experience as a human being to think, how much of this could I watch and get? How much of it would I be fine with? Here's where we get a little bit more into choosing the right tool for the right job. So do you want students to sit in one place? We're talking about if a video should be 6 to 9 minutes long. Our guideline is try to keep them to less than 10 minutes. If you want students to sit down and watch all of them back to back, then maybe the other thing that we should be doing is thinking about how are you asking students to respond to or process those videos in between. And some of our other tools might be the right thing for that. So like a video and then a discussion, or a video and then a live video conference, or there might be some combination of tools that helps them stop between videos and do some work on them. Most people who do primarily lecture style courses are incorporating some sort of a check-in or some interaction with students in between the various lecture pieces, right? So like I said earlier, when I come to a classroom, I'm just sort of naturally going between my presentation and your needs, my presentation and your questions. In an online setting, you just have to tease those out. So maybe in total, 20 minutes of my course is presentation. And so I'm going to use Kaltura Capture in the way I think is best to capture that and make it available to students to watch. 30 minutes of my 50-minute course is going to be different kinds of activities, and Kaltura Capture might not be the right thing for that. Having a live video conference or using a discussion board or having students do something else like a presentation. There's lots of other things you might ask them to do. So Kaltura Capture is really the best tool for asynchronous presentations, not for other things you might be doing in class. Announcements is a wonderful tool for maintaining communication with your students without sending lots of emails, because we all know that the email system every once in a while we can't find the sent email, or a student says they didn't receive it but it went to spam. Email is a great tool, but it's not necessarily the best one for ongoing course communication. However, announcements, once you create them, they stay here, so everyone can go back and review them. I set the course up as if it's my Monday, Wednesday, Friday course for next week. Just to give you an idea of what kinds of things might be possible here. So one thing that I'll tell you is labeling your modules really carefully so that students are aware of exactly what class meeting that represents and what's going to be happening. You don't have to use a day-by-day structure. You can use a different structure, but just make sure that you're labeling everything clearly. And also, I like to put a lot of description of what's going to be required for that class meeting to make sure that there's no confusion between me and the students. You can click right here where it says add a module and add as many modules as you need, and you can add them on an ongoing basis. If you hover your mouse over add a description, it'll open up a text box where you can add a description. So one thing that I do want to point out though is that I have a virtual classroom meeting already scheduled for this time. Virtual Classroom is one of our 2 video conferencing tools that's available in Brightspace for when you need live interaction with your students. It's not presentational, it's definitely an interactional tool, it's high bandwidth, and it's synchronous. However, you can also record it, which this meeting is going to record. You can also record it so that students who aren't able to engage in the activity in the moment can go back and review the recording asynchronously with a slightly lower bandwidth. I'm going to click enter the meeting room, and I would like not to use the microphone. I know, listen only. If I want to present slides to you, I can upload a presentation. I'm going to browse for the file I just downloaded a minute ago. Right now it's just uploading the file and converting it, and next thing you know, it's going to pop up into the presentation so that everyone who enters this virtual classroom space with me will be able to see this presentation, and I can talk it through. Okay, thanks for coming to the workshop, Tools for Putting Your Courses Online. We're going to keep space between us and practice good social distancing. Here's some resources that you can access. And in fact, if I skip to the end, I have a bunch of links on the slide as well. This is going to be available afterwards. I also have tools over how to engage. Look at that. People are already figuring it out. We can engage in sort of a back channel chat as we're doing the video conference. So if I want all my students to be muted for now, and I'm just going to take a minute to present, they can still be engaging in a chat. If some students, for some reason, lose access to audio and visual, for whatever might be happening with their own computer, they should still be able to access the chat because that's a much lower bandwidth tool. And even when students lose the audio and visual, they often still keep that. So there are lots of options here. I have used Virtual Classroom probably a dozen times in the last 3 years in a dozen different ways. I've used it to Skype in guest speakers to my class. I've used it to hold class. A year and a half ago, we had an ice storm, but class wasn't canceled and I didn't feel safe coming to class, and so I hosted my class meeting using Virtual Classroom. It worked great. I had to tell my students a couple times to turn off their video though, because they were at home, there were people walking by, and it didn't make sense for us all to be on video, but we have that kind of control. How do you find Virtual Classroom yourself? That's an excellent question. I'm going to go back into the test course. There are 2 different ways that you can access Virtual Classroom inside of your course. I'm going to go down to this test module here. The first one is inside every module, there's a button called Existing Activities. And if you scroll down, one of those existing activities is Virtual Classroom. If you click on this button, it will allow you right now to set up a call. The other way is to add it to your navigation bar, and if it's going to be a tool you're using a lot, if you're going to choose Virtual Classroom or if you choose Zoom, you probably should stick with one or the other. Whichever one you choose, you might want to add it to your nav bar to make it really easy for students to find. And to edit your nav bar, you're going to hover over it until you see these 3 little dots, and then click on those. Edit this nav bar. When you edit the nav bar, you see that all of the links in the nav bar are just here as widgets. And I'm going to delete the My Media one. I don't need that. I'm also going never delete course admin, or you'll have to email us and ask us to help you put course admin back. But maybe I can add the link. I'm going to search for it right here real quick. Virtual classroom, and you notice this one has a description on it that says do not put it on the nav bar. We try and make everything really easy for you to find. So use the virtual classroom, click add, and then the cool thing is you can move this anywhere you want. So if you want it to be really front and center to make it easier for students to find, you can stick it wherever you like. And when I save and close, boom, here it is in my navigation bar. Now there's a tab in my course where I can go to edit meetings that are already in progress, launch meetings, or create new meetings. Right here, this little red button, it's kind of hidden in the corner. It says schedule meetings. If I click on that, it'll let me schedule a new meeting. It'll let me decide, do I need an external link that we can send like to a guest speaker who's going to be using Zoom to speak to the class that day? Do I want to invite the entire class, or is this like a one-on-one office hours meeting and I only want to invite one student? Do I want to automatically record the meeting, or do I want to manually record it? You can answer all of those questions here, fill in what it's required, and then click save, and now that meeting is available for students. If Zoom is going to be a big part of your course, you add it to your nav bar, and then if you're using Zoom, this link will say Zoom, and it will allow students to access Zoom and all the tools and all the meetings right there from the nav bar. So you can also put Zoom meetings into a module, the way I showed you to earlier. Both places are available, and it's okay to put them in both places. Both links will take students to the same virtual classroom or the same Zoom meeting. So the main difference between virtual classroom and Zoom is that virtual classroom is the built-in Brightspace tool, and Zoom is an external vendor that we've contracted with. They both integrate into Brightspace in really almost the same way though. Virtual classroom can only have up to 50 participants, and the recordings will only be saved for 14 days. For most people who are doing seminars or who want to do office hours using virtual classroom, that's plenty. On the other hand, Zoom has up to 300 participants, and the recordings can be audio or video, and they're kept indefinitely as long as you need them. So we're trying to emphasize that, like, having some familiarity with video conferencing in general and then making your choice about the tools is up to you. However, if folks tell us that they have a very large class, or that they want to be able to put a large class into smaller breakout rooms for small group discussion, my favorite feature on Zoom is you can use a green screen and put photos and videos behind you and teach in front of a green screen. I've seen some language teachers use that in ways that are amazing pedagogically, and I'm super excited to try it out. Those are differences that we're developing guides for as we go, but for now, the main purpose of video conferencing is to get your whole class together, like during scheduled class time, and have that real high bandwidth, synchronous, interactive space, and both tools do that. It does have the back channel chat, and so I keep that open while I'm teaching, and if students want to raise their hand, that's where they do it. They type in, I have a question, and then I call on them. The question from the room is if they have auto captioning, which is a wonderful thing. Kaltura Media all has the ability to add captions to your videos. They're about 80% accurate, and they're editable. So you can edit the captions after they're churned out. Spanish is not bad. I've tried it. So you can edit the captions after they're churned out. Anything that you record into the Zoom cloud will do auto captioning. That is also editable. You can download the file, edit it, and then re-upload it. The question is, how do we have students turn in work and provide feedback? And there's a a couple of tools. I don't have time for that in this meeting, but I want to point you in the right direction, and I want you to know that if you contact us at Brightspace Support with your questions, we would love to help you with that. If you go to our resources, you will see that one of our biggest collection of resources is about assignments. The assignments tool is great. You can easily create what's basically a Dropbox for students to drop their paper assignments into, or record a video and add their video to this assignment. And then you get a grading screen for each student where if it's a document, you can annotate the document directly, you can add feedback, you can add audio feedback, video feedback, text feedback, grades, connect it to the gradebook. There's just so many features. That's why we have all of these things. The assignments are also connected to Turnitin, which is our academic integrity tool that checks papers for evidence of plagiarism to the extent that that's a possible thing. And that has some really cool tools for easy grading too. That's an hour and 15 minutes on its own just for that workshop, but I would encourage you to read through, just play around with the assignments tool, and then contact us if you need support using them. For the virtual classroom, can students share their screens? Yes, you can make students presenters and they can share their screens.
And then you can kind of get the screen.
And then you can take the screen back. Okay, so the first step for creating a virtual classroom meeting is going to be either go to this virtual classroom tab. That's one way. And then you'll be able to see this pink circle in the corner to create a new meeting. Let me show you the second way, because every course has the second way. If you're in the content area of any course anywhere in Brightspace, any module will have this existing activities button. Virtual classroom is alphabetically the last one on the list, so scroll all the way down.
And what are you under when you're looking?
I'm in a content area in absolutely any module you create in any content area in any course. It's always there. You can add one of these existing virtual classroom meetings to this module, or you can create a new meeting by clicking Schedule Meeting. But I can add every single one of these virtual classroom meetings to my module just by clicking on it, or I can schedule a new meeting with the blue button, Schedule Meeting. When I click on Existing Activities and then scroll down to Virtual Classroom, it shows me a list of every virtual classroom meeting that's available right now. I can click on it, like meet with one person, and now this meeting is added to the module so it's easy for students to find. Or I can go to Virtual Classroom, click on Schedule Meeting, and I can create a brand new meeting from here. Once that's created, then I have to click on it and get it into the module to make it easy for students to find. This is why I like to create one module just for all the virtual classroom sessions and then add them all to that one module, because I think students find it very easy to locate when they see that tab on the left and know every virtual classroom session is going to be clearly labeled and all listed in the module. In this case, I have two different examples of what a class meeting might look like. This is like where a seminar class meeting, where actually the virtual classroom might be a really important part of the class meeting. So I've put it here and I've put it here. And either link will take students to the same meeting. Other times for other kinds of courses, just having them all in one module all together is plenty. And also if virtual classroom is linked in the nav bar, then we have yet another place that we can have them. I do different things depending on my courses. So in Peabody, I teach courses that are 3 hours once a week. And so I put an entire week's worth of materials, every single thing that has to do with that week in a module. But other courses that are maybe, I teach one Spanish course that's actually 4 or 5 days a week, and that's just too many modules. And so I will create topical modules, but there's a lot of flexibility. And no matter how many links you create for something, it always goes to the same spot. You can just create a module here that's called Virtual Classroom, which I've done right here. And then using existing activities, you go to Virtual Classroom, and it shows you a list of every single meeting that you've created. and you can just click on that and it plops a link to that meeting right here in the module. So here's what I want to tell you about being asynchronous versus synchronous. For most faculty who need students to have, the question was if students are working in groups, can Zoom create different links? Students are going to have like a Zoom dashboard they can go to find the meeting, and then once the meeting starts, you either already put them in groups or you can manually put them in groups afterwards. However, most of us, for the kind of teaching we do, we don't need students doing live conferencing in groups. Some people will, but most of us need to use discussion boards for group activities because discussion boards are lower bandwidth, they're asynchronous, and they just are easier for students to access on mobile devices and things like that. If they have technical difficulties, the discussion boards aren't scheduled at a particular time. Discussion boards, which I've put in this course some examples of what discussion boards might look like, in case you're interested in checking out some discussion boards. So I've created a Q&A discussion board. You can, if you want to practice using it, you can post your questions here. If I create a discussion board specifically for groups of students, they can use that for the next 2 weeks or throughout the semester to check in with each other. You'll see that I have embedded video here. You can do video, audio, images, links, text. You can add all sorts of different things into these discussion boards, and so it's really easy for students to share things with each other and work together collaboratively, but it's also low bandwidth and asynchronous. If you need that live interaction, Zoom has the ability, but most of us aren't. Once Zoom is ready to go, get comfortable using Zoom, and then come back to our support site. Right here where it says video conferencing, Zoom and virtual classrooms, you'll notice that we have more and more Zoom meetings coming, or Zoom resources coming all the time. And these will be just like the ones you have here that have a lot of screenshots and step-by-step instructions. And so once we get those guides ready, we will share them with you. But you can also Google. There's so many educators using Zoom exactly that way. So if you go to the Zoom page or Google, how do I set up small groups for students using Zoom? There are a lot of people out there who are also sharing those resources. So I would encourage you, if you need small groups and it has to be video conferencing, we'll have resources soon, or find resources online. If you need small groups, but it doesn't have to be video conferencing, that's a more flexible thing to do. It's a more flexible way to engage for students, less chance of technical difficulties, and that can be done really easily using discussion boards. And we also, as you will probably imagine, we have a whole section about how to create groups and how to create discussion boards on our support site that we want you to use. And you can always email us at brightspace@vanderbilt.edu if anything we've put out is confusing or you just need that little bit extra help. We're really happy to help. With any of these tools, can you find out which students are viewing which videos? You can. So in the content area, if you put something in content, we don't actually have any students in this course, so this is going to be a terrible demo. But I added this audio file. I just dragged and dropped it off my computer. This is an audio file that students can play right here inside of Brightspace. And one of the tools that instructors have access to here is called Completion Summary. And it gives me a list of all the students enrolled in the course. And it tells me the day and time that they last accessed the resource. And if they haven't, then it says no access. We always give the caveat that this isn't a perfect tool because students sometimes access resources other ways besides clicking on the content module. All this tells you is that they clicked on that link, not that they accessed the resource because they could have gone through a back door. Most of your students are just going to click on the link, so it gives you some idea of who's doing it. In virtual classroom, you see a list of all the students in attendance. So that works with Kaltura Capture, is posting it there and then looking at the completion summary. And actually that works really well with Kaltura Capture because there's no other way for students to view those videos besides clicking on what you give them. For virtual classroom, you see an attendance list, and Zoom actually provides an attendance report that you can access after the fact and check who is in your session. If you're just clicking on the link but you're not actually enrolled in the course, or if you're using Zoom outside of Brightspace, when you click on the link, you have to type in who you are. You can type in whatever you want, but then the presenter will be able to see what you type in, so you can put guest or visitor or your first and last name or whatever. When you create a video on Kaltura or Zoom, who does it belong to? It belongs to you, or whoever is in the video. There's a lot of stuff going on with that question, but what I can tell you is that at Vanderbilt, if you put things in your course, we don't assume that anyone else should have access to that other than the people that you've allowed in your course. We at Brightspace support, don't assume that. On the other hand, at the end of the semester, if you don't remove things from your course and the course goes, maybe you no longer teach here, or the course is about to be deleted, or whatever happens, we don't assume that you care what happens to the stuff in your course either. When we do have Zoom ready to go, you'll go to existing activities, and then since I have not had access to it yet, I believe you'll go to external learning tools, or it might just say Zoom here. I haven't seen what the integration looks like, but we are going to have step-by-step how to do it on our support site once we get access to it and can take the screenshots. We want to make sure that we give you good instructions. Zoom and virtual classroom are completely interchangeable. The question was, should Zoom be for office hours and virtual classroom for class time? No, they're basically the same thing. They're just two different video conferencing tools. I love that when we have so many people who are going to be using video conferencing tools, we have two available. Virtual classroom is the one I've been using, so it's going to be the one I keep using because I feel comfortable with it. But Zoom is going to be available inside and outside of Brightspace, and we're going to be ramping up materials for it as quickly as we can, and you should feel absolutely free to use either, but probably choose which one you're going to use with your students in your course. The question is, if you do office hours on virtual classroom, what would that look like? So this is something I have actually done in the past. Even when I'm having face-to-face meetings with my students, one time I was at a conference and couldn't hold my regular office hours in my office. And so I sat in my hotel room at the conference, had my computer on the little, there's the one chair and the one stand next to the window, had the computer open, had the webcam on, was in the virtual meeting. When a student popped in to ask a question, they could ask what they needed to ask. Pop out when they were done, and it was just like I was sitting there available on virtual classroom for 2 hours, and students could pop in and out if they needed me. Both of them will let you create a recurring meeting, so you can automatically, if your class is Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 2:10, you can create a meeting for Monday at 2:10 and then tell it how often to repeat. Both of them will be able to do that. The question is, on Zoom and virtual classroom, will we be able to see our students' videos? Yes, students have control of whether they share video with you, but if they share their video with you, you'll be able to see them. Oh, interesting. So BC just said that with Zoom, you can set the meeting up so everyone comes in with their video off. You can also make them come in muted. If you are wondering about captions, adding captions to videos to make them accessible, both Kaltura Capture and Zoom has the ability to caption your meetings. So if you create a video with Kaltura Capture and upload it to My Media, you can edit that video and specifically request captions to be added to it. It takes a little while to generate the captions. They're auto-generated and they're about 80% accurate, but they're also editable, so you can go in and clean them up if you want them to be perfect. Zoom does a very similar thing with the cloud recordings of Zoom meetings. So if you have a 20-minute discussion with your students, let's say first they watch a 20-minute lecture video that you created with Kaltura Capture with captions. Then you go into the Zoom room and you have a live 20-minute discussion with your students in the Zoom room. Once that video is uploaded into the cloud and available for students to watch, it can also have captions added to it. They are also about 80% accurate and they are also editable. So if you want to make sure that the tools you're using are available to people who have a range of different needs, captions are available. We're really excited to keep working with you. There's going to be some learning curves this week. We're up for it. We're stretching ourselves as far as we possibly can to make sure that you have the support that you need. I'm a faculty member here too, and I take what you guys are doing really seriously. And I'm excited to be on the road with you as we all learn how to use these really cool tools If you need help deciding which is the right tool for the right classroom activity, I'd love to help talk through that with you. We're trying to keep, instead of just doing everything as live video conferencing, really picking the tool that's going to be the most accessible, the most useful for students. But also, we don't want you to have to bend over backwards to recreate the wheel. So picking 1 or 2 tools that are your go-to tools, getting really good at them, feeling comfortable with them, is going to go a long way. Thanks for coming today, guys.